14th. We are live streamed, and the recording of this will be available on our district website at this point. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to begin with some introductions this evening from our Pro Start. Dr. Avila.
We are excited to have the Pro Start team here from Northtown, which they are here with their teacher, Aletha Cassidy, and I'm going to have her come up and introduce the rest of the team.
Hello, my name is Aletha, and this is a combination of my Pro Start 1 and Pro Start 2 students. And they stayed after and made the meal for you guys, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Alex.
Hi, I'm Serenity.
Hi, I'm Adon.
I'm Christian.
And I am Emerson.
All right. Thank you guys for having us.
They served a very delicious meal for us, so thank you very much. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Ms. Hines? Here. Ms. Gleason-Miller?
Here.
Ms. Wagner?
Here.
Mr. Harrell? Dr. Ward? Here. Ms. Reinhardt?
Here.
Ms. Kauk?
Here. Our next item is Champions of Service, and again, Dr. Avila will help lead us in this process.
Okay. Well, we are proud to have 8 outstanding employees joining us tonight to be recognized as this evening's Champions of Service. Representing our transportation department and the school-age childcare program, they epitomize what it means to provide excellent customer service. Our first honoree is Barb Foster. Barb is a well-known and widely celebrated bus driver in our transportation department. She has been a difference maker for students and parents for nearly a decade and a half. She is a kind presence, interactive, and always ready to listen to students' latest stories about their day. Barb is a peer leader on the transportation lot, not only for the healthy snacks she brings, but also for the way she inspires others to find their joy and make a difference each day. We recently received a phone call about Barb from an immensely grateful parent, thanking her for avoiding a potentially unsafe situation at a bus stop drop-off and bringing their child directly home instead. We appreciate Barb's quick thinking, compassion, and genuine care for all. Thank you, Barb. Next, we have Zach Snow. Zach serves as our district's routing and dispatch coordinator. In this role, he is the mastermind behind the 2.9 million miles driven by our school buses each year. 2.9 million. Zach got his start in the district as a bus driver while he planned to become a classroom teacher. However, driving came naturally to him, and he decided to make his home in transportation. He now serves as a walking encyclopedia for our 1,400 routes and school boundaries. We appreciate Zach's expertise and focus on customer service. Next, we have John Ray. John Ray. John Ray has dedicated 30 years to serving as North Kansas City Schools bus mechanic supervisor. Over the decades, he has become a legendary technician known across the city. John's incredible expertise, quick smile, sense of humor, which sometimes included a couple of interesting jokes, keep the whole department entertained and laughing. Despite John's best efforts to hide his huge heart, we all see it every day. Always the first to offer a hug, help, or encouragement, John leaves behind big shoes to fill as he retires at the end of this month. Thank you, John Ray. And then finally, following in John's footsteps is new bus mechanic supervisor Tim Dooley. Tim is a proud Winnetonka graduate and a nearly 20-year veteran of the heavy truck repair industry. Tim brings his vast knowledge to North Kansas City schools, already making an impact through his service-oriented mindset. He loves to take apart problems big and small, sometimes literally doing so to repair enormous bus engines. Tim's easygoing demeanor has quickly made him a natural leader among the transportation department. Thank you, Tim. And these are our transportation honorees.
Just a quick word to say how much we appreciate each of you and understand how each of your individual roles are so integral into the fabulous department that we have as our transportation, from the customer service as well as just the experience and the expertise that you bring. It's just really incredible. And I know you always score very high when the state comes in. We're very proud of that record. And John, especially, congratulations on your years of service to this district. That's an incredible record, and we are so, so appreciative. So, yeah.
I have worked with some of these individuals very closely. Zach has saved my life many a day with data and helping me solve a problem and get the answers I need in a hurry. I can't tell you how many times Johnny Ray has changed a tire for me or aired it up. It sounds like I have a problem, doesn't it? But Johnny Ray is so quick to solve it every single time, and he's an incredible man with a photographic memory. I'll tell you that. He's just the smartest guy in the world and can fix anything. And so Tim, when he talks about you in the same way and gives us the nod moving forward, that makes us feel awfully good too. So can't wait to work with each of you, and I love hearing the stories and saw the video about Barb as well. So thank you so much for all that you do. Do you have special people here with you this evening you'd like to introduce?
I have quite a few. I have my wife, Katie, who's holding my daughter, Thea, and my son, Tommy's in between. My dad's here, Tim Dooley. That's right. And then my youngest, Tanner, also as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here this evening.
And I have my girl Tanja Seidel of 16 years.
And she drives for us
She
too.
drives for us too.
Thank
Yes.
My wife is not here, but she is listening on the YouTube on her commute home. So yeah.
It's just me. Just me.
That's right. A whole cadre of supporters here. Very good. Well, I know the rest of the board and administration would like to congratulate you as well. So if you might make your way around to the corner, they'd like to say thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here tonight. Congratulations.
Passenger van is about as wide as I could go. Thank you.
It's been great.
Okay, next we have our honorees for school-age childcare. Two dynamic duos are also with us this evening from the Adventure Club program. First, Shannon McNerney and Damaris Valencia. They would both come forward. These two are the driving force behind the before and after school program at Northview Elementary. Each plays a pivotal role in lighting the path for those they serve, engaging students in exceptional experiences that extend their learning well beyond school hours. From literacy and STEM nights to family-style dinners with tastes of cuisines from around the world, okay? They foster curiosity and creativity in all. In addition, Damaris utilizes her skills to enrich students' understanding of other cultures and spark an interest in the Spanish language. Together, Shannon and Damaris' dedication creates an environment of learning, growth, and cultural appreciation for Northview Adventure Club families. Thank you, Shannon and Damaris. Across the district at West Inglewood, we are also fortunate to have another dynamic duo leading the school-age child care program, Melissa Brandon and Guadalupe Valdez-Diaz. They are the shining example of teamwork, dedication, and the power of working side by side in service to families. With years of experience working together, they go above and beyond to provide heartfelt care for all. Miss Melissa's warm Southern charm and hospitality ensure everyone feels welcome, while Miss G's creativity encourages students to express themselves and nurture their imagination. Singing sessions are a fan favorite at West Inglewood. Melissa and Guadalupe truly are an extraordinary pair who enrich the lives of all those they serve. Thank you for all you do.
So glad for the opportunity to recognize you tonight. This program is so important to our parents, to our families, and I know our kids absolutely love it. And when we call it Adventure Club, you guys are exemplary in terms of what adventures they can do right there in their own schools after school and before school. So thank you so very, very much for giving it your all. We really appreciate you.
Having had both of my two boys go through the program too, I know how important it is. You start everybody's day for them. You help teachers and other staff members because you get kids in a good place before they ever enter a classroom. So thank you for that. And then same to the parents who pick them up after school. You do great work with the children after the bell rings. So we appreciate that greatly. And I can tell you how much it meant to my family too. I still will look for that invitation to the cultural night with food. And then I do like to sing. So I'll come by anytime there too. But we appreciate you greatly, and it's so nice to honor you. Do y'all have people with you tonight? I know there's one very vocal one back here. Love her.
Yes. I have my son Micah and his beautiful wife Tori, my daughter-in-law, and my grandbaby Maverick with me.
I just have my mom with me tonight. Yeah, she's over there.
I have my stepdad, my mom, my best friend, and my brother.
I have my dad Adan, my mom Laura, and my brother Mateo.
As the others, I'm sure everyone would like to congratulate you and say thank you again. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you so much. We will continue on with our agenda, and if those of you wish to stay, you are certainly welcome. We enjoy having you. If you feel like your evening is short enough and you want to head out, you are certainly welcome to do that too. So thank you so much for coming tonight. Before you is the agenda for this evening. Do I have a motion for approval of the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. And the agenda is approved as presented. Moving into new business, we have a school board election resolution before you, and Ms. Reinhardt will be reading that.
Good evening, thank you. Resolution 1, be it resolved by the Board of Education of North Kansas City School District Number 74 that an annual school election be held in said school district on Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024, for the purpose of submitting to the qualified voters of said school district the following propositions. Proposition A is to elect 1 director for a term of 1 year. Proposition B, to elect 3 directors for a term of 3 years. Resolution 2 is conducting annual school election by the Clay County Board of Election Commissioners and the Platte County Board of Election Commissioner officers. Resolution 3, be it resolved that the North Kansas City Board of Education pay their prorated share of the expenses incurred for the annual school election as determined by the Clay County Election Commissioners and the Platte County Election Commissioners. Resolution 4, be it resolved that the opening of filing for membership of the Board of Education be 8 a.m. on Tuesday, December 5th, 2023. Prospective candidates must file their candidacy with the Office of the Secretary of the Board of Education at the Administrative Center, 2000 Northeast 46th Street, Kansas City, Missouri, 64116. And Resolution 5, be it resolved that the closing of filing for membership on the Board of Education be at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, December 26th, 2023.
The resolution has been read. I would entertain a motion for approval of the resolution as presented.
I would move approval of resolutions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? We have a motion and a second for approval of the school board election resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. And the resolution is approved. Thank you, Jane. We have another resolution this evening, and that is the American Education Week resolution. And I would suggest that the board go round robin with the various part of this proclamation, and we'll start with Ms. Laura Wagner. Thank you.
Thank you. Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And
whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And
whereas education employees, be they custodians or teachers, bus drivers or librarians, work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And
whereas schools are community partners bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders, and elected officials in a common enterprise.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the North Kansas City Schools Board of Education proclaims November 13th through 17th, 2023 as the 102nd annual observance of American Education Week.
As you have all read, we have a resolution proclamation regarding the 2023 American Education Week. Do I have a motion to approve this proclamation?
So moved.
And second? Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Thank you. What an important resolution considering our public education. Appreciate that. Motion is approved. We're now going on to our workshop topics, and we have two this evening, and Dr. Daniels has asked to begin with the evening with those.
We often remind ourselves that we are relentless champions for all students, and that is often a measure we use to hold ourselves accountable by. The board elevated a goal from the strategic plan, an academic goal that read, redesign and expand educational opportunities for students needing a setting beyond traditional learning environments to provide routes to individual success. And they put that on the balanced scorecard this year. Tonight, we have the pleasure of hearing from Dr. Eric Johnson, but he's got some friends along with him too who will help us understand the temporary alternative placement center and the successes that it's brought thus far, again, in helping us meet that goal of being relentless champions for all students. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you. First, thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to speak just briefly about the Temporary Alternative Placement Center. I'll be before you briefly, but the real highlight will be Ms. Jan Burgess, who is the teacher at the Alternative Placement Center, and the real spotlight, Lennon Ross, who's one of our first students there. We also have Antoinette Sparrow, who is one of the teachers at the TAP Center as well. TAP Center, which we call it affectionately. The mighty Maasai people of northeastern Africa are among the most famed and recognized groups of the continent. The world has often been in awe of their customs, culture, and traditions. But one of the more unique rituals they're known for is their traditional greeting, Kaserian Ngera, which means, and how are the children? Each adult member of the Maasai greet each other in this way with reverence and expectancy. Ideally, the respondent, even those without children themselves, will respond to the call with, all the children are well. This greeting or mantra shows the care, concern, and collectivist approach the community takes to ensuring the well-being of children, as children are the tape by which the Maasai measure their success. They recognize that regardless of what life circumstances, life pressures, or obstacles may be present, if they can honestly respond, all the children are well, there's always hope, life, and the potential for longevity. If the children are well, the people will be well. How would we in North Kansas City Schools answer the call, Kaserian Ngera? How are the children? Although we're doing amazing things for most students in North Kansas City Schools, there are points that we need to recognize that show that all the children, each and every single one of them, are not necessarily well. Last school year, in the year 22-23, we had 9,930 days of out-of-school suspension. That's 9,930 opportunities students missed to be in front of their teachers, to be among their peers, and develop a sense of belonging in our schools. Our data also show that when we take the panorama, 37% of students in grades 6 through 12 responded affirmatively when we asked, do you have a sense of belonging? That places us in the 10th percentile in the nation when compared to all schools. Post-pandemic, we saw headlines that read, schools were really suffering. Students' discipline was high. It was starting to spike and peak. We saw suspensions in schools rising, and then we saw questions of whether or not exclusionary discipline was the right approach to dealing with students who were struggling post-pandemic. In our own district, that was also the case. We've seen a trend where long-term suspensions, those suspensions that are 10+ days, were increasing. So in 17-18, we note that we had 82 long-term suspension requests. So that's, again, 82 requests for long-term suspensions of 10 days or more. Last year, that more than doubled. We had 177 requests for long-term suspension. As we dive into that data, we recognize that when students are suspended long-term, there is a sense of disconnection from the community. We recognize there was credit deficiency, so students who were suspended 10 or more days failed one or more classes in most cases. We also recognize that even those students, when they were able to go back into school, they had difficulty reintegrating and re-socializing to that community from which they were pulled from because of their suspension. And then we also noticed that there were many students who had instances of recidivism, where although they were out of school for a particular instance, when they got back in school, they were either in ISS or out of school suspension again. So the exclusion from school itself was not necessarily working in our case. What we recognize and have to think about is every single action and behavior from a student is them trying to communicate something to us. And what I recognize is that students who don't have a sense of belonging or don't feel connected to the school are going to find some kind of way to feel and deliver a message to us that they want to feel connected. I love this proverb that said, "The child who's not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth." And although our students may not be trying to burn down the village, again, they're trying to deliver a message to us. Our purpose for being and our reason for existence is our mission statement. And I love to read it out loud because I think there's power in putting that into the space. As relentless champions for all students, North Kansas City Schools' mission is to develop self-aware, authentically empowered, future-ready learners through a rich array of purposeful learning opportunities and collaborative cultures of belonging that are culturally affirming, academically challenging, experiential, and exploratory for each student. Again, we're doing great things for lots of students in our district, but as our mission states, our goal is to make sure that every child, each child, is well. As Dr. Daniels mentioned, we have a balanced scorecard this year, and one of our goals is to redesign and expand educational opportunities for students needing a setting outside the traditional classroom environment to provide routes to individual success. More specifically, we created a goal where we took that staggering number of almost 10,000 days of suspension and said we want to decrease that by 25%. That's a hefty number to try to decrease. But we believe we have strategies that we can put in place to make that happen. So we want to decrease from 9,930 days to less than 7,500 as measured by our EduClimate data, which is where we house our discipline data. That's our goal for this year. The only way we can do that is having a grounding philosophy that is counter to exclusionary discipline. And what we do in North Kansas City Schools is we value restorative practices. We believe even when a student is excluded from the environment, they deserve a few things. One is an opportunity to reflect and think about what led them to being suspended from school or excluded from their home base. An opportunity to repair that harm once they recognize the harm they have caused, and then a successful pathway to reintegration back into the school system. That's where we came up with the idea of the North Kansas City Schools Temporary Alternative Placement Center. Our principals last year said, we need something in between, Dr. Johnson. We recognize that our students are struggling a bit. We recognize that when they come back to us, some of them are credit deficient. We recognize that the sense of belonging is being fractured. But we also know that sometimes it's necessary to temporarily remove a student from the environment. We didn't have the TAP Center in place last year. So this was from ground level where the principals were saying, this is what we need for our students. How do we keep them connected to us, but give them an opportunity to develop some underdeveloped skills while they're out on suspension? Again, the goal is to find positive pathways to support kids back into school. So our partnership for the TAP Center developed from, again, partnerships with two organizations. One is the Center with Synergy and the Boys and Girls Club. So these are two organizations in our community that are known for youth development. They have specialty in engaging with youth, pinpointing specific underdeveloped skills that they need developed, and providing that support to get them where they need to be. The TAP Center is at the Youth Resiliency Center, and I love it. There's a sign outside the center that says, "Be the change," and it just encapsulates really what we want kids to recognize is that you are going to be the change. You're the person who is responsible for changing you and getting yourself to where you want to be, because that king or queen that's inside of you wants to get out, but you have to be that change. So the TAP Center, again, is off campus. Students are temporarily removed from their environment. Right now it's for students who are grades 7 through 12, so only for secondary students, but we're providing academic support through Ms. Burgess and Ms. Spiro. And we're also providing social skills development through the work that they're doing with Synergy and the Boys and Girls Club. They get individual support, also small group help if there are students who are there who need similar skill development. I want to provide you with just a little bit of data before I have Ms. Burgess come up and speak to you all. These data were pulled on October 31st, so a couple of weeks ago, just to see where we were just after about 50 days of school. So this is day 52 on October 31st. And I wanted to compare it to year to date to last school year. Excuse me. So in October 2022, RES means request for extended suspensions. We had 42 requests for extended suspensions by October 31st of 2022. This year we've had 22, so you see a decrease of 20 requests. I want to stop there because that's a significant number as well. That's in partnership with principals. That is a nod to them. That has nothing to do with me. I can't request an extended suspension. They do. That means that they're doing more restorative practices with their students, finding ways to keep them included in the environment, and finding alternatives to exclusionary discipline. So that's a nod to them. With respect to those that were requested, I have, in 2022, I extended 16 by last school year this time, and this year is 8. So we've cut that in half in terms of the number of students who are actually extended. Excuse me, not extended, my apologies. Next means not extended. So 16 were not, 8 were not this school year. And then last school year we had 26 students, or 62% of those students had been extended. And this year we've had 7 at this point in time that were extended. So we've decreased the number of students who were extended for suspension. You'll notice that those numbers don't add up because we've included the TAP Center this school year. So 7 of those students who would have been extended out actually got a chance to go to the TAP Center instead. So instead of serving a long-term suspension at home by themselves, learning how to do things on their own on the internet, they are now under the care and support of Ms. Burgess. At that point in time, we had 7. The last 2 weeks have been interesting, and we have quite a few more that have been requested, but also have an opportunity to have some skill development at the TAP Center. And just a couple quick pieces of data. So it shows those 7 students, there were a total of 251 days of long-term suspension that were given to these students based on the incidents of discipline incidents. For the days of OSS they actually served, it was 73. So you see that those students served their initial 10-day suspension. They had a hearing with me, but then although they could not go back to their school, they were serving the rest of their suspension at the TAP Center. So 73 days have been served outside of school. 81 days total have been served at the TAP Center. So that's a positive point there. We have more days served with adults who care about them versus them being at home on their own. And then when we look at days saved, I monitor, if I said, okay, if you don't go to the TAP Center, this is how long your suspension will be. So we've saved 178 days of out-of-school suspension just with 7 students. So this is one of the ways that we're going to decrease that number, that very large number, from 10,000 down, kid by kid, slowly by little bit by little bit. And then overall, when you look at OSS days and days at TAP Center, those students had 173 days away from the building. So although they were 173 days away from the building, when you look at the individual students, you saw one student who was out of school for 10 days, 18 days at the TAP Center, and then she saved 23 days of out-of-school suspension because she went back early because she did well at the TAP Center, and she was away for 33 days, but she was with an adult for 18 of those. This is long-term suspension data compared to last school year. On October 31st last school year, I had already assigned 1,942 days of long-term suspension. That doesn't mean that's how many they had served, but they were already, that's kind of what they were facing already. Some of them had already been extended all the way for the rest of the school year based on what they had done. This school year, we're at 260 days total at that point in time. The total days assigned were 2,362. So when I say additional days, that means I don't assign the first 10. So you subtract those first 10, and then you add them back in when you look for the total number of days that were assigned. So we've had 480 days this year, 2,362 last year. So overall, the days of long-term suspension served to date, 519 last year. Those were actual days by October 31st. This year is 298. So you see that stark decrease in the number of days that are being served by students. So that's just a little overview and a bit of data about the TAP Center. I want Ms. Burgess to come up and talk about the day-to-day operations, the fun things that are happening at the TAP Center, and then give London an opportunity to share with us a little bit as well.
All right, I don't need that, I don't think, because it's just one slide. Hi, everybody. I am so excited to be
a part of the groundwork in realizing Dr. Johnson's dream, the TAP Center. It's been a wild ride. We started like just right away, and we hit the ground running. And so there are 3 different major parts of what we do at the TAP Center. When we get a student, the first thing we do is, in cooperation with Synergy, is we make sure that we're safe. That's our number 1 goal. And then our number 2 goal is relationships. So if we're not ready to work on academics from day 1 because we have a lot of upset, we have a lot of emotional dysregulation, we work on building that relationship, building that trust, so that then the student can learn that we really are there to listen to them, that we understand that their behavior is communication to us, and we are able to separate the behavior from them as the person. So that's one of our main goals. And then in planning, we go into the academic plan, and instead of, in school notoriously, kids have assignments that they need to do, and these are the missing assignments and stuff. And it would be very easy for me to give them a list of missing assignments. Here's your work. Let's have you do it. But what we tried to do is individualize that and look at the individual student. Where are you now? What classes are you failing? What are you struggling with? Where do you want to be? And then what's the best way to get there? We look at assignments that have different point values. Do we need to focus on things that have more point values? And do we need to modify assignments because we're in a different setting and we don't have the materials that we might need in the regular school setting? And then the other thing is, a lot of times, the kids have struggled in the classrooms, and so they don't have a particularly good relationship with their teachers, right? And so what we do is work with them on, Ms. Spiro is really, really masterful at this, how do we communicate with our teacher? How do we ask for what we need? How do we submit our assignments? How do we thank them for the extra work that they're doing, because they are grading things that were long overdue. They're doing extra work for us, and so that teacher cooperation is really pivotal. And the teachers, for the most part, have been fantastic. They've been really good to work with. So I think they thought that I was crazy at first, because I'm not a high school teacher, so I don't know how all of that worked. So I was asking so many questions. I'm sure they were rolling their eyes. But the second part of what we do is the restorative piece, right? Because we want to make sure that the kids can re-enter school and be current in their schoolwork so that they don't have that stressor. But we also need to address, why did you get in the situation that you're in, and so we talk about the function of the behavior, because a lot of times kids don't even understand. They understand that they got in trouble for fighting, but they see it in an entirely different way, and it takes time to pick that apart and look at it and listen to them. We have more time, so we can really listen to what their part in their side of the story, and pick it apart. What were you trying to get? What needs were you trying to get met by having that behavior, and how can we meet those needs differently? How can you still get the things that you needed if you needed to protect your sister or whatever? How do we do that without doing behaviors that are going to get us in trouble? And so that's kind of the reflective piece. And the instructional piece, of course, is, what was the behavior? What consequences are you going to get? Clearly, some of the consequences are you get suspended from school, right? But some of the consequences are, you're pretty soon you're going to be 17 or 18 years old. Then the consequences change quite a bit. And you need to understand that there are real world consequences for these behaviors. So let's learn now, while you can, how to do that differently. And then the last piece of it is restorative, and we do that last because that's the hardest to do, right? It's really hard to apologize, right? And so we work with the kids on, how do you do an apology? How do you make it sincere? How do you apologize just for your side of the street, your part in the situation? Because it takes two to have a conflict, right? So we're recognizing that there was another part in that, but you need to fix your part. And so we spend a lot of time on that later in the program. And then the last thing we do is the transition contract. It's really important that the kids are not just heard by us, but that they're heard by their administrators and their support people. So what we do is we have the student identify one or two adults in the building that they feel connected to, that will listen to them, that will advocate for them, that will be in their corner. And we include them in their reentry plan. And so they identify, the behavior, they admit the behavior that they were suspended for, but then they write out their goals. What are those action steps that they're going to do? And a lot of times, like for academics, like I'm no math teacher, especially at the high school level. It's sad. So a lot of times the part of the plan is that you will meet with your math teacher, do MTSS or whatever extra work you need to do to get caught up, so that we're not just saying, oh, I can't do math, so you're on your own. We make that a part of that reentry plan. And then we talk about what supports do you need? Do you need a fast pass? Do you need to be able to leave the classroom before you get upset and do something that's going to get you suspended? Do you need to have the permission to do that as long as you go to where you're supposed to go, right? And do you need to check in every morning? Do you need to have a snack? Those kinds of things, because everybody's different, and sometimes we need those little things. So that's a big part of that transition plan. And then we ask, and which what London's going to share with you, is how TAP has impacted them, their stay with us. How did this program help them, and what are they looking forward to upon their return to school? So thank you very much for your attention. What? Oh, yes, I forgot. I'm sorry. On the reflective, a lot of times with our emotional dysregulation, like we have resiliency lessons with the Synergy staff, like the helpers come in or a therapist came in today. And so we learn about, that the cycle of conflict, those emotions, and learning how to self-regulate. It's one thing to say, well, you need to use self-control, right? Don't we all, right? So today we did an activity where I had to do it because some people wouldn't volunteer. I had to wear a garbage bag. 3 of us were wearing garbage bags, and we had seltzer water, right? And so the kids were throwing out things that make them mad, things that are really upsetting to them. And as they did it, we shook our seltzer water, right? We shook the bottle. And so then the therapist had the first person uncap the bottle, and of course it went all over the place, which is explosive anger, right? So when you have it building and building and building, eventually it just blows, right? Then we did it again, and I had to open my bottle. My bottle was filled with tap water, so it did nothing. And we talked about stuffing our feelings, right? Where we freeze and we self-harm and all those things that are not noticeable and not disruptive. And then the last person, we did it again, but then we talked about different things that I like to crochet. I do it all the time. It's crazy, but it keeps me from being a crazy person, right? And so we talked about all the things that the kids do that, help them, if they play basketball, if they play video games, if they listen to music. And so then the third person, every time we mentioned something, they opened it a little bit and let out a little gas, right? A little gas until she was able to open it. There was no explosion. And so it was really a visual, participatory activity that the kids could really understand and make sense with. And so it's just, I can't tell you how happy I am to be here and do this. So it makes my day. So thank you for listening. Sorry about that. All right, Miss London.
Okay.
All right, you got this.
Hi, I'm London Ross, and I am the first graduate of TAPC. I'm excited to be here to talk about my experience because I definitely feel like I've grown since, everything happened. I got into an altercation with another student at school, and it was pretty horrible, it's pretty big. Before I had came to TAPC, I really balled up my feelings. I really didn't talk with anybody about my feelings because I just felt like, okay, well, I got this, I got it under control. Then just one day, just all exploded. And I came to TAPC for the first time. I didn't know what to expect. I saw Miss Burgess, of course, and she made me feel comfortable. She let me know what to do and everything, and she just like really helped me with things that I didn't even know I needed help with, like anger, like I didn't know I had that. Just like touching on sensitive topics that I really would never talk about, like my auntie passing away, and just multiple things that I would never say to my mother. I feel like I've grown since I've been there, in like I wouldn't say a short amount of time, or just like a time like that. I just say like I've grown. I know my triggers. I know what makes me mad. I know what makes me happy. I know what makes me sad. So I know how to calm those things down. And yeah, I went there, I got there. It was a learning experience, and it was a beautiful journey, and I'm glad to be a part of it all, and I'm glad to be the first person to do it. So it was just a really beautiful moment for me, and also an understanding of myself and of other people, and how to be the bigger person and how to be mature, especially for a 13-year-old girl, and just how to continue on and how to keep going with the plan that I've made when I got there. My plan was to keep good grades and to make sure that I have everything in set and goal. And I did that, and I'm still doing it. So I'm absolutely proud of myself. I want to thank these ladies and this gentleman right here. I want to thank everybody who's been by my side with this. I want to thank family at home. Definitely have a great support system. They're all supportive of what you do with your life, and they just all want the best for you. Because I came in there and I was just like, they don't really care, like they don't know. And I finally got a chance to talk to everybody and finally got their point of view on things and understand everything. And they made me the person who I am today, and I'm glad that I was a part of this, and I'm glad I was the first person to do this. So thank you.
So you all have a packet, and that's London's transition plan. It was her academic plan. You'll see that her grades, where she started, every single one of her classes, she went up. All of her grades increased. You'll see the reflection that she went through, where she had to identify what are the things she needed to work on while she was at TAPC, what she learned while she was there. And then the last couple of things you'll see is her restorative plan, where she recognized the harm that she caused and what it looked like to make things right. She wrote a couple of apology letters to the administration and to some other folks, and then was willing to potentially have a conversation with the person she was in conflict with. I do 10-day check-ins for every student once they go back to school from a suspension. And I did my check-in with London last week, I think it was, maybe a couple weeks ago. And I was just amazed by the young lady that was in front of me, the level of maturity. She's an 8th grader at Antioch. You would never think this young lady's in 8th grade, the way she speaks. And she had talked about how she had already been using the skills that she learned from Ms. Burgess while she was at the TAP Center. And I'm just excited to see what can happen with some of our students when we continue to pour into them instead of exclude them. So one day we can truly say all the children really are well. Thank you. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. I'm sure there are some questions and comments. Who would like to begin? Would you like to?
This is fantastic. I don't know that I have any questions. I'm excited to see what's next and to see this program as it continues. I hope that it continues because it's needed and it's great, and you're doing an excellent job. Congratulations. Thank you for being the first.
Dr. Ward?
Couple of reflections. The first one is, I'm so glad we're doing this. I don't know how else to say it. It's just the idea of having students who are struggling and to the point that they have acted out in some way that was extreme, which I view as, a reflection of how much seltzer water had built up. And to have that circumstance and then to expel them, you know, I never could make sense out of, for students who are struggling in relationships and academic performance, we exclude them from the school. It just seemed like an incongruous reaction. And so when I look at this and when I watch what you know, London has shared with us, it makes so much more sense to me. And I will be delighted to look down the road a few months, a few years, and see whether indeed this TAPC has provided a change in path so that the recidivism is low. To spend our time helping, helping children be well seems like so much better expenditure of resources than spending time on dealing with truancy. So congratulations, thank you for giving us the insight to say go. And to London, I would say nothing but congratulations. I mean, to stand up there, say what you said, stand on your own 2 feet, look us in the eye and talk to us, it's remarkable. I know that's not an easy thing for most 8th graders, and especially ones who may have been struggling. And congratulations on your grade enhancement. That should get you back into where you want to be. And hopefully this is just a start, and to the teachers who helped you do that. Great thanks to them. It's a partnership that works. You had some missing skills, they're helping you get them, but it takes your commitment to make it work. So, you know, this is one of those you walk out just kind of feeling proud about what's happening. So hopefully it will be good for the children.
Dr. Johnson, thank you you know how near and dear this is to my heart, because I taught at a school that was filled with Londons, and we didn't get to reach all of them. And if we had, maybe I would have gone to fewer funerals and spent less time in the intensive care unit at hospitals. So it's very, very personal for me. London, you're going to be at Oak Park next year? Okay. Well, I hope you will check into their speech and debate program, because you need to advocate not only for yourself but for other young people, and you'll get even more skills that you didn't even know you needed in a program like that. So I'm very supportive of that. Thank you all very much for coming here this evening. I appreciate it.
I can't think of a better person to lead this charge than you, Dr. Johnson. This is just amazing. Thank you so much. I mean, I will tear it, because this is really good stuff, you know. Thank you, London, for coming, because this is hard. This is really hard stuff, and for you to come out here today is, it's hard to do. I mean, it's hard to do because it's intimidating, but it's hard to do because this is very personal. It's a very personal thing to do. It's a very personal thing to share. And for you to be leading this charge and to be an example is very hard. So we're just very proud of you. And it's very important work. And I just want you to understand just the depth of what you're doing and what you've done tonight, just getting out here and sharing your story. So I'm very proud of you. Thank you very much. I do have a couple of questions on our partnership. What does that partnership look like specifically? Like, how does that, like, whose building is that? And like, what does that staffing look like?
Absolutely.
And kind of how much staffing do we have? Like, what is a little bit more of that logistic?
Perfect, thank you. So the YRC, that's the Youth Resiliency Center, that is a Synergy building. So they are the ones who are housing the program. So they have a full staff. The ones that they have dedicated to us are 2 youth development specialists who are working with the students daily just in terms of whatever it is they need, and then also providing resiliency lessons once to twice a week. We have 2 staff members there. That's Antoinette and Jan. They're the ones who are serving as the North Kansas City school staff. And then we have on-call nurse and school resource officer if needed to go to the TAP Center.
So do you see this program, I mean, obviously we don't want this program to grow, right? Because we would like to see that. But I mean, do you see if this program is successful, maybe like the opportunity for maybe students who, I don't know, maybe the guidelines for which a student would qualify for this to maybe broaden, or I don't know. It just seems like it would be beneficial for just so many other students rather than just students who might be, out of school suspension.
Absolutely. So right now, the only students who are eligible to go are those, again, who are long-term suspended, who would be long-term suspended, and they have to consent to going. We're not going to make them go because it's about personal self-development. If you're not quite ready to get that skill, we could cause further harm and disconnection from that student, and they could also impact someone else who is there, who is trying to get what they need. Jan and I have already talked about how do we continue to expand a little bit to add more students to the process. So I have talked to some of our high school principals that said, right now this is for students who are suspended, but we may have some kids who are not quite at the level where they need to be suspended from school, but they do need some kind of reset, or they have some missing or underdeveloped skills that the Synergy staff and Jan and Antoinette can help work with those students. So I've gotten a couple requests on that level too. So we're trying to slowly expand, but we're still in the beginning phases, so moving slowly.
And Dr. Johnson, we also have, there's an after-school program that's from 2:30 to 6 with the Synergy staff, and all the students are eligible or are allowed to stay for that. And that's students in the community, and so they work with the kids also on resiliency lessons and art. There's an art studio there, there's a gym. So there's a lot of recreational activities that the kids can engage in as well. So it's really cool. And the 2 support staff that we have, they kind of do a catch and release. Like if we're having a student who is dysregulated and very, very agitated over something they perceived me as saying or I said or did, then that student can go with a non-partial person, vent, get calm, and then we can get back together. So it just gives us another layer. So we have this environment where all of the school pressure is gone, and it's just what the student needs, and we can manipulate that environment a great deal to serve them. Yeah.
And our students, they're responsible for their own transportation?
So we provide transportation there, but when the TAP Center ends, transportation's in their first tier already of picking up students, so we can't provide transportation home. So we haven't run into an issue yet where we can't get the students home, because like Jen was saying, we have the after-school programming where although the TAP Center is over at 2 o'clock, they can stay until 6 until someone can come pick them up and engage in even more development.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much. So first, London, I applaud your courage in standing up and so publicly talking about your journey. I'm so impressed with how you've been able to articulate and communicate the change that you went through. I'm totally amazed that you're an 8th grader and that you're able to express yourself in such a mature way. In fact, in a way that I find a lot of adults are unable and incapable of expressing themselves. So I think you have a real gift that I would love you to explore, just as Jane said. So thank you, London. I know that sometimes when these difficult things happen in our lives, it can be a source of potential shame or feeling like you have to hide, but being able to shed a light on it and for you to be a public face is really such a testament to how important it is for advocacy and bringing more visibility to this. So thank you so much. And Dr. Johnson, I'm just so inspired by this vision that you had and that you are executing. So thank you so much for bringing that to our district, for speaking about it with passion, and just that whole restorative piece of it where there's nowhere you can go that isn't redeemable, right, in some way, shape, or form, especially for our kids, right? They need to know that regardless of how far they feel like they are from whatever the mark is, they have an opportunity, right, to start over and start fresh. So thank you for that. I do have one question. I'm just wondering, for either students who might not yet be escalated to the point where they might go into TAPS, or for students who might not be able to integrate back in for whatever reason. It could be the school environment is overwhelming, or it's just not the right place for them. What are some of the thoughts that you had about those students who might need an alternative place to continue to thrive?
So we look at every student individually. We have a student right now who was supposed to leave the TAP Center today, and we had to have an unfortunate conversation with her and say, you're not quite ready. So we're gonna hold on to you for a little bit. We have faith and confidence that you can get ready, but you're not quite there yet. So that was her individual plan. Students who are struggling in school, we have an entire tiered process that Dr. Porter and Lisa Friesen, they really work students through this tiered process of support for students to find individual paths for success for those kids. One of the last things that we have, which I'm also have the pleasure of being responsible for, is alternative, our high school alternative HSAP, high school alternative program. Those students are those who are credit deficient. The school environment is just not quite working for them at the high school level, and this is a really great avenue for them to ensure that they can graduate with their cohort class.
Thank you. And London, I echo all that my colleagues have shared. You have shared a lot of mature thoughts, very vulnerable thoughts. But in looking at your plan, you are well on your way to your very strong future. And I'm so pleased that you are our first. That is a position that no one else will hold, so that makes you extra special. Thank you so very, very much. I'm glad we were here for you. I'm glad that we had gotten with that that quickly. I have a little bit more question about the scheduling, and Carrie kind of started asking about staffing. So as we are hearing that we may have more students coming in just right away, how do we flex with our staffing with those needs?
When you say flex with staffing, could you?
Yes, I mean, we have a variety of persons with different skill experiences, but you had mentioned that our numbers kind of blipped just this last couple weeks. And how are we looking at that in terms of adequate staffing and flexibility to handle blips?
So with Jan and Antoinette both there, so I failed to mention that both of them are retired teachers from North Kansas City Schools. They were a team at Northgate, and they've been working with students for years, serving them in this very capacity. We almost handpicked them. When I say almost, I mean we did. Handpicked them and said, we need you all to be in this space because they're special in that way, and they have great relationships with kids. So right now, we're not at capacity. So as the first 7 kids have left, we have 5 or 7 more that are taking their place. When I did the study last year to see where we would have been the entire first semester had we had a TAP center, we never went over 16 students. So that's how we decided that we needed 2 individuals there to serve that number of students. And we're kind of still on the same trajectory to where we don't quite think that we'll get over 16. If we do feel like we need to expand it, I'm sure our friends in HR would help support the process to get us to what we need.
Okay, thank you. That helped flush it out just a little bit for me.
You gotta shoot your shot, even if you're in front of the board.
You mentioned the 2:30 to 6 o'clock time. Are a few students staying? Are a majority of the students staying? Can you give me an indicator of that?
I think all of the students have stayed some. Some are just by their very nature that they're introverted and stuff. They're not ready to spend a great deal of time there, but all of them have stayed a bit. None of them have given any negative feedback to them, but you know, they're teenagers, they'd rather go home and do their own thing, right? But we have a lot of kids whose parents can't pick them up. Like we have a bus driver as one of the parents of the student that we just transitioned out. And so he stayed until 5 and really had a good time. They have a lot of really cool activities there. They have a teaching kitchen. They make meals. They do major art projects. There's a recording studio. I mean, it's a cool place. So it's pretty motivating for the kids. But I think it just takes some time. You know, these kids have been marginalized, right? That's kind of what they're used to, and so it takes them a little time to take risks, right? So.
And the kids are also motivated. The Synergy program gets a lot of donations of food. And they're welcome to the snacks, the chips and the cookies, and they really, really like that part of it too, so.
Is that good, London? Was that, you like that part as well? So,
Hi, my name is Antoinette Sparrow, and as Dr. Johnson mentioned, Janet Burgess and I worked together for years, and I just want to say something. I have never seen anything like this program. It's wonderful. I just wish it was around years ago, and the only problem that I see with it is the kids really, really like it, and they talk about belonging, and we understand them, and we listen to them. You know, listening's a skill, and not everybody can listen. And we do our best, and they don't want to leave. They're like, do I have to leave now? Do I have to go back to school? And the answer is yes, but it's just great. I just wanted to say that. I wish it was around a long time ago. Thank you.
Thank you for those words. One other question, and that is just the integration of their class work and all of that. So if they're there for a couple hours during
3 hours a
3
day.
hours, I assume then there's lunch available too, since it's over the lunch hour. But how, the time off, are they doing online learning, or what is the plan that usually is?
Yeah, so they're still in their classes. So most of our courses are on Canvas now, which is our online learning platform. So Jan starts out with emailing the administrator who's overseeing the plan, all the students' teachers, and just saying that this student's going to be here with me and I'm going to serve and support this student. And she makes sure she understands what their academic plan is for their kid, young adult, excuse me. Most things are online. If they have things that they cannot do online, she can get the materials for them, or they make a plan to where they can get those things done when they're back in school. So they're still in that same plan.
And the teachers have been wonderful about, there are times when you do filler activities or things that are not necessarily essential objectives. And all the teachers have been really good about excusing assignments that couldn't possibly be done in our setting and that were not critical objectives. So they've been really kind to the kids and let the kids know that, there's hope. This long list of assignments that you haven't done since the beginning of the school year, which is overwhelming, we're going to work with you and make it more manageable. Mm-hmm. So they've been really good.
And that's a plug for standards-based learning. Our teachers have really gotten to the mindset that every single assignment may not necessarily be an essential assignment, but can you show me the skill that we're trying to get to with one or two things? Give me one or two opportunities to show that you know what you're doing.
Because that gives the kids hope, and hope is really, what we're going for, because they feel hopeless when they're marginalized like they are. So.
Thank you. Well, you have all given us a lot of hope today, and I am so thankful it was an appropriate one to have before the Thanksgiving break. Thank you very much for each of you being here tonight. Thank you, London.
Thank you so much.
Our next item of business for our workshop topic is the Employee Engagement Survey, and Dr. Avila is going to cover that this evening. And Dr. Daniels, would you like to say a few words with it?
Yes. And employees' engagement is all about their relationship with the organization. And as you saw tonight, my goodness, Jan and Antoinette were incredible examples of it. We don't want employees to just feel like they come here and have a job to do, but rather a deep connection and responsibility to help us fulfill a mission, and you saw that again. So what we're going to hear tonight, Dr. Avila has a little bit of data around our most recent employee engagement survey. It will help us gauge how we're doing regarding employee engagement on the whole. But then she'll talk also about some other listening opportunities where we can learn more, and then ultimately what actions we can take to best serve those who serve us each and every day. Dr. Avila.
Thank you for that introduction. I think I have to just acknowledge just how moved I was also by what was shared in that previous presentation, and seeing Jan and talk about engagement as an employee, the ownership that this duo exemplified, and then even going back to Champions of Service tonight and the people we were able to recognize from various departments. And as I was sitting there, I was just thinking about how it really illustrates that the work we do is so important. We are really doing life-changing work, and it takes really good people to do that work. It takes not just really good people or really talented people to do that work, it takes really engaged people to do that work. And so I love the tribal greeting that Dr. Johnson shared with us of how are the children. I think what this will attempt to answer in some degree is how are the adults, because it takes them to really accomplish what we're trying to do. So before I dive in, I'd like to just begin thinking about employee engagement at a big picture level, and just acknowledge the state of the workplace in general, and just the challenges that we've seen across industries during and post-pandemic. You may be, I'm sure many of you are familiar with Gallup. They measure a lot of things, do lots of studies, and one of the things that they do look at is employee engagement. In their most recent report, they found, using their tools and analysis, that 32% of U.S. employees across industries are what they consider to be engaged. And then beyond that, they have a criteria for what they consider best practice organizations. Those are organizations that achieve high outcomes or high performance, but then also have high levels of engagement. And they say that the average level of employee engagement for those organizations is about 72%. But then they also do a supplemental report where they look specifically at schools. And this number wasn't really encouraging to me personally to see that what they found was that 3 in 10 U.S. K-12 employees are considered at work in 2023. And so I think we'd like to think, or I like to think, that education is a special place where people come to do this work because they're driven by passion and purpose. And sometimes we feel as though these sorts of trends may not impact the work we do, but I think what this is saying that is, to some degree, it does. There are 2 recent trends that we've seen, particularly with the workplace. One of them, a few years ago, was named the Great Resignation, where we saw people leaving their workplaces at high numbers. And then on the back end of that, we saw a little more apathetic approach with the movement of quiet quitting, where maybe people are not actively leaving their jobs altogether, but they're choosing to just pull back and be a little less engaged, a little less invested in the work that they do. And so I think this is just all the more reason why it's important that we continue to commit to not just measuring employee engagement, but also finding ways to strategically respond to the data that we're seeing. And so that's what I'm going to share with you tonight. Let's see. Okay, there we go. I think this ties back to our charge, or our mission statement of being relentless champions for all students, but knowing that our greatest and most valuable resource are our people, and so therefore it's important that we continue to find ways to also be champions for one another. This also ties to our strategic plan, strategy number 3. In a very clear way, this strategy states we will ensure, develop, and support a healthy and highly capable workforce that is not present, not available, but passionate about meeting the needs of each other and each student. And so I think in a lot of ways, the commitment of the board to continue to prioritize our people and taking care of our people is very important. And I think you're going to see that resounded in the data in this presentation. As Dr. Daniels mentioned, we have the survey that we use as kind of our main source of information, but there are lots of other ways that we are listening, engaging with our people. I mentioned to you before the spring recognition study that was a follow-up to the previous survey from the 21-22 school year, seeking to really understand if recognition is what our people are saying that they want and they need more of, what do they mean by that? Because recognition means different things to different people. Over the summer, we got an invitation from some partners at Children's Mercy Hospital and Blue KC. They wanted to know more about how to support educator well-being. And so there was a team here in North Kansas City that conducted well-being focus groups where we sat down with a mixed group of employees over four days and really asked questions to get a better sense of what factors within the workplace really contribute to their overall well-being. We also have a fall and spring panorama survey. This is administered to students as well as staff. Formerly, it was only administered to certified staff, but because of some of the things that this survey measures, as well as particularly honing in on sense of belonging, not just for students, but also for staff, we added the classified employee group to that survey this year as well. We have some other in-person opportunities to hear from folks. I've had the pleasure of tagging along with Dr. Clemens and Dr. Daniels this year as they've gone to visit various school sites and really just hearing from staff in a very open-ended way. What are the things that our people are saying are going well in our district, and then what are the concerns that rise to the top? And we're about halfway through those for the fall, and we'll come back around and do another round in the spring. And then one at the bottom there that's coming up is work that we'll be doing in collaboration with HR, Dr. Schutz, really wanting to get a better understanding of why people stay in North Kansas City. And so we've identified some school sites in particular to pull some focus groups together and see if we can identify those factors that influence employee retention, particularly in North Kansas City schools, and then how can that inform some of our strategies going forward, again, related to the balanced scorecard goal. Addressing staff retention and recruitment. So just again, a quick overview of the various ways that we are listening to our people. So then what do we do with this data? Well, you all are familiar with it. We used it in helping to inform what goes on the balanced scorecard, which ultimately becomes the superintendent's goals. This data also gets shared with CTTN, and they use it as one of the pieces to help inform what goes on their issues list for the year. And that will come in a presentation at one of our upcoming meetings, so pretty quickly here. And then also we share this information back with our principals and department leaders. They get the overall district data, but then they also get the data based on their site, so they know what specifically is going well with the people that they particularly supervise. So that's where the data goes. This is a quick overview of participation over the last few years. This is our 5th year doing the K-12 Insight Employee Engagement Survey. We've done it ever since 2018 minus 2020. There was a little something that happened there that prevented us from being able to do the survey then. But the reports we get back from K-12 Insight are reported in 3-year trends. And so you got the most recent 3 years here for you. And as you can see, we've seen a steady uptick in terms of participation. It's about 5% each year. This past spring, we had at the 2,200 employees, that was about 65% of our employees. So trending in the right direction there. What's not here on the screen is the breakdown of how many certified and how many classified participated. That breakdown is also 65% certified and 35% classified this year. So we're seeing an increase in participation, but still have work to do on the classified side of things to make sure their voices are being heard through this tool as well. In terms of the survey structure, this was something I had to take some time and really dig into to understand, but there are 3 parts to the survey. There's the first section that asks 8 questions that gear at just an employee's overall engagement. And then the second section really tries to identify those factors, those specific factors that help drive employee engagement, and then they're categorized by dimensions. There's 6 dimensions. One is strategic plan and goals. The second is district leadership. The third is school and department leadership. The fourth is work environment. The 5th is feedback and recognition. And then the 6th dimension is career growth and training opportunities. So that's the second section, and then the last piece is just more demographic questions, just so that the data can be broken down by classification, certified versus classified, years of service within a district, and then also by their work site. In addition to receiving our report for North Kansas City Schools, we also received the national benchmark report so that we can see how we compare to the national average. And as we go along, I'll kind of let you know where we fall with that. So In terms of overall engagement, we're looking pretty good. We have 79% of our staff this past year who were categorized as highly engaged or engaged, and this was a slight increase from the previous year by 2%. Some other just interesting facts to note here is of those who were surveyed, or of those who participated in the survey, we saw slightly higher levels of engagement for classified staff versus certified staff. And then I may have mentioned this in the previous presentation. I always find it interesting just the life cycle of an employee and how that affects their engagement, where we've got our newest staff, those who've been with us less than a year, tending to be more engaged. That mid-career range, 11 to 15 years, they tend to become less engaged, and then as they get closer towards retirement, we see engagement start to tick up as well. So with this survey, they're given prompts, and they respond with a 5-point Likert scale: strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. Other questions within this section of overall engagement would be: my work is interesting, I'm proud to work for North Kansas City Schools, I'm motivated to contribute more than what's required of me. Our most favorable and least favorable prompts are on the screen here for you to see. Our highest, and it continues to be our highest year after year, is the response to the prompt, I am engaged in my work. So staff are self-reporting high levels of engagement. Our least favorable item is I see long-term professional growth and long-term career opportunities with North Kansas City. Again, that's been pretty consistent for us as well over the last few years, and that's also very consistent with that national average that I mentioned. For both of these, we are within 1% either over or under with these two items. With those 6 dimensions, the report also tells us what's our highest rated, what's our lowest rated, and then our most neutral. Our highest rated dimension is work environment. The most neutral is strategic plan, and then the lowest is district leadership. When we talk about work environment, these questions are a combination of the physical environment, but also the atmosphere, the climate, the feeling tone, the collegiality that they experience. And so these are just a few prompts from that section, just to give you an idea of where we are. The 2 highest rated items within that dimension are my colleagues support me, that continues to be the highest one, and then I work in a clean work environment. The 2 at the very bottom are ones that I pointed out to our district leadership team as just being interesting to me personally. We've got 86% of our people saying my colleagues support me, feeling that sense of having a support network. But then for the prompt, my colleagues promote a positive work environment. We're seeing that one trend in the opposite direction of where we'd like it to go. And so when you put those 2 pieces of data side by side, I think it speaks to a very interesting experience for staff. So feeling supported and feeling a part of a team, but maybe some of our staff not realizing the power, the influence that their attitudes and behavior has on their other colleagues. So that is work environment. As I mentioned, strategic plan is, wrong direction, sorry. Strategic plan is the most neutral area, and really what that just means is that there's more work for us to do in terms of communication about the strategic plan. People are not necessarily against it or highly in favor of it. They just don't necessarily see as strong of a connection between the work that they do and what's written into that plan. And so, again, just an area for us to really highlight and think about how can we be intentional in increasing that communication. This was another piece that we talked about at district leadership team last week. And I had a follow-up conversation with Cindy Boltemeyer over in transportation. So in our PD day coming up on Monday, she's actually giving her bus drivers copies of the strategic plan and then taking time to go through it and say, here are the pieces that really relate to the work that we do and why this matters and where some of these decisions are coming from. So as much as we can get our leaders to help us with that, the more that we, on the communication side of things, can help draw those connections, I think we'll see some increases there. And then district leadership, again, you probably have heard Dr. Daniels share this in multiple years too. It continues to be the lowest rated dimension. That's not just for us, that's also the national average there too. But one thing when I dug a little bit deeper into this data that was interesting is that although this was our lowest area, our responses were at or above the national average in all of the individual prompts. And more so, we saw some big jumps in certain areas. So for example, when prompted with district leaders' actions are consistent with their words, or district leaders promote a positive district work culture, those were both 5% higher than the national average. So we've got work to do, but it looks like we are moving in the right direction with that one as well. So the last part of the report is designed to really help narrow the focus of, okay, what do we do with this data? And the way that they do that is they help identify which specific areas really have the strongest relationship with engagement. And that part is really helpful because we may score really high in certain areas or in certain items, but they may have a weak relationship with overall employee engagement. And then the converse of that could be true too. So in the next part, I'm just gonna go over what comes out as our greatest strengths and our greatest opportunities. Our greatest strength in this would be our school and department leadership. The average scores in this area were relatively high, but also have a high relationship to overall employee engagement. And so we took some time at district leadership to talk about what specifically are our leaders doing to produce these sorts of results. This is one prompt that we are seeing trend in the right direction. My principal or direct supervisor promotes a positive work culture. We saw a decent jump there from the previous year to last year by 14%. So prompts here are, I can count on my principal. When addressing problems, I trust my principal to make good decisions. My principal or direct supervisor trusts me to make good decisions. And so we really took this as an opportunity to highlight and celebrate our leaders and say, keep doing what you're doing. Our greatest areas of opportunity, these are those that are rated comparatively lower on the survey, but have a strong relationship to engagement. So these are the ones that we need to hone in on. With that would be district leadership. There is a strong relationship to how employees see their district leaders. And so being really intentional with how we help shrink the distance or close the gap between what happens on the ground level and what happens at district leadership is really important. But as you can see in this particular example, district leaders promote a positive district-wide work culture. We also saw a big increase last year of 18% from the previous school year. So again, that same conversation, what are we doing? What have we started? What's the difference that we should continue to do? And how can we expand it out further? The other area that has a high or a strong relationship with engagement is feedback and recognition. And this piece you've seen before when I did a previous workshop specifically on recognition of that balanced scorecard item. This was just more affirmation that this was the right thing for the board to put on the balanced scorecard and for us to put some more dedicated effort into. Career growth and training opportunities, you've seen this as well when Dr. Coy and I talked about classified PD and the rationale behind that. The difference in staff recognizing that continued growth in education is a priority of our district, but then also seeing the gap in terms of the opportunities that are provided for professional growth and improvement. One that you didn't see last time was this one here, where staff were able to give some feedback on the quality of training that they've received within the last year. This prompt here, the training I've received from the district or my work site has helped me perform my job more effectively. We saw a 10% increase in that from the previous school year. My inference here is that some of that is because we were able to bring back some of our professional development opportunities post-pandemic that we weren't able to do. But again, this is an area that is strongly related to employee engagement. So it's something for us to continue to provide quality experiences for professional development for all employees. There's also an opportunity for staff to provide open-ended responses just to the question of what do you think could be improved about our district. And this is where classified PD opportunities, our classified staff saying we want more opportunities to get better and to be trained on different things that we do every day. Salary increases continue to be an ask, particularly as it relates to classified staff. One interesting thing here is certified staff asking for increases for classified staff. Student behavior, we've talked about that before, wanting more and new solutions to help support our students. Initiative fatigue, and then again, greater opportunities for appreciation and staff recognition. So I just gave you a lot of information, some of which you already had before, and then some of it you'll probably hear more connections to at an upcoming board meeting when CTTN presents their issues list. But this data does go lots of places to help us keep growing and improving and thinking about how we're really taking care of and being champions for not just all of our students, but also all of our staff. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Dr. Avila, I have one. Well, I have a couple actually, but they'll piggyback off one another, I promise.
Okay.
Remind me again when this survey went out.
This survey was administered in April.
Okay.
It was open for 3 weeks in April.
Okay, I'm wondering, are we doing it twice during the school year so that, because I recognize that there are a lot of initiatives that we have underway right now that will address some of these concerns. Since we know that we're going into the 23-24 school year and we know that we're doing a lot of the things to address some of the concerns from the survey, could we see the beginning of the school year and the end of the school year to see if there's a movement on some of these numbers?
I think, so with this survey, it is a pretty extensive survey, and we also have Panorama that's administered in the fall. So that window is getting ready to close right before next Tuesday. So we get a lot of information from that survey in the fall on some similar items. But I think that's where we really lean into some of those other listening tools as well, such as the superintendent's visits. And then there's other things that I did not list, such as I know Dr. Sutton does some listening opportunities. HR has meet and confers. So there are other departments that also gather information that help support or better understand what's showing up in the survey in April.
Is that all combined somewhere? Because it feels like a lot of questions asked to possibly the same groups of people multiple ways over the course of several months. So I didn't know. This is helpful from a comprehensive perspective, but it's a lot of data that we're gathering many ways. I don't know how it's gathered together. It may not be. It may be. It may not need to be. I don't know. I'm just asking to understand.
I think that's the role of cabinet. When we meet weekly, we've got to process all of those things and see it come together seamlessly. I do like the multitude of inputs that we get out of it and a variety of lenses, but we also know that a survey isn't the singular answer to something. So those face-to-face conversations, going to CTTN and hearing from our colleagues there about what's really ground truth is very important. So again, cabinet would be the central hub where we need to process all of that.
Kind of the other side of the coin, where listening is critical because we can dream what they want, and my belief is if you're talking about what they want, you're probably in the wrong place to even get the solution. So you got to start with, we and us, and the listening is the critical component of that. Sometimes the feedback I get is that I get a new questionnaire every week. I get, where do you feel like we are in the balance between gathering enough information and overkill?
I think that's a really good point to draw out. And I think the surveys that we do, the main two surveys we do are employee engagement and Panorama. The other pieces for us would be the in-person conversations, whether that be small group or in larger groups with the superintendent's visits. What may be happening that I don't have a good pulse on are if other smaller departments are sending out additional questions that we don't necessarily manage, but that would be certainly something to look into. I think the other thing that is important is how we're communicating back what we heard from people and what we're doing as a result of that. And so within communications, we've talked quite a bit about how do we continue to change the way we communicate and specifically call out, because we heard you say this, these are the actions that are being taken. I think when people see that they're not only listening, but they're also doing, then they see the value in providing input when we ask for it.
Do you have a sense of what this district's commitment is to issues of employee engagement and employee satisfaction and retention, the focus we have in that area compared with other districts locally or nationally? Do you have any sense on that?
I can tell you that just over the last few months, I've personally attended multiple webinars on employee engagement, recognition, retention. We had a few leaders from our district go to a seminar here in the city, and even at recent conferences, it's a hot topic, but I don't know that I've listened to others who have a novel solution or something we haven't tried or thought of yet. And so I think my sense is that we're being a bit more aggressive about it, and in terms of how we're trying to figure it out and the ways that we're collaborating with multiple groups to figure it out. Because I think I probably would have found something without the research we've been doing about it. So. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Nice presentation.
Thank you. Just two questions. Once we get all this data that you've shared with us, I mean, is this shared with all of our staff, certified, classified, in like their professional development workshops or anything like that?
We share it back with our leaders, and then we ask our leaders to share it with their people. It is a lot of information, and not all of it is relevant for every employee group, and so we give some leeway for leaders to really make those connections between the parts of the data that applies to their work. And that's something that, again, last week when we talked, we need you to own this data with us and take it back to your people.
Okay. And the second question, do we get a lot of response back, like on the open-ended questions?
Yes. We had over, was it 1,400 open-ended responses?
And is there a theme?
Yes, and so there are lots of themes. This slide here were I would say the top 5 themes that came out of those open-ended responses. And so,
okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Can you remind me which? So classified participated in this survey.
Yes.
And did they participate in last year's survey?
Yes.
And then the year before that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I think that everything, that we've kind of gradually gotten a little bit better from our last survey. To me, I think that we've seen some positive increases in some very significant metrics. And so it can be a slow journey, but every step, every positive step is an important one. So I'm looking at this in a good way. I think that this is good stuff that we're looking at. So thank you. And what I also think is, if this is, a survey from April, we've done some really great stuff this year, and we've really pushed really good stuff this year. And our professional development, one day a month, all of the stuff that we've done for classified, and that's not even factored into this survey. So I'm really excited for the survey next year.
I am too.
So
I am too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
2 questions, I think.
I can actually only think of one right now, but maybe the second one will come to me. One is, so with these open response themes, is that in any way connected to exit surveys that are done by people who leave? So I'm assuming that some of these things are directly connected to retention and our efforts to retain staff. So I'm just wondering how those data are connected together.
It's a really good question. I haven't personally seen exit surveys; those go through HR. But my assumption would be, and Dr. Schutz, you can correct me on this or not, is that if an employee chooses to complete the exit survey and to list out the reasons why, I imagine they would many of them would fall under these same categories. So I would assume there's a connection there.
Yeah, that'd be an accurate statement.
Okay. So then the question is, how do we?
I can't remember my second question, so that's good.
It's okay. When you think of it, just reach out.
Thank you. I appreciate this. And as I've stated with some of our other strategies, the more intentional we are, the more clear we are about our goals, and taking clear action steps, the better we are becoming. And I really appreciate the hard work and leaning in. And I do really value how much time getting into the granular aspect of some of the responses. I think that has made the difference, because you can kind of see the results over and over again on a big picture level, but you really don't know the right response if you don't really understand what's behind that. So thank you for that. I also really appreciate staff for taking the time to respond. I hope they know we do really care, and it really is important to us. I hope that it is understood that we not only value it, but we trust them and trust their responses, and that they trust us enough to continue to share very openly in our listening forums and in other situations, that it really does help us all float all of our boats, that we're committed to making it a better place to work and to learn. So thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that is our last item this evening. Before I adjourn, just a couple dates. Our next meeting is November 28th. And tomorrow evening, the board is hosting School Board University, and that is at 6 p.m. in this room. And it's for persons exploring their interest in potentially filing for the Board of Education. Also on your table is a packet of Belcher scholarships, and the results, your vote on those is due to Peggy on November 17th. That is this Friday. So if you would please take a few minutes this week and take a look at those. We appreciate that. That goes on to the state, and then that student competes at the state level for the scholarship. And I believe our student may receive a scholarship from our foundation too, as a result of being our selection. So thank you very much. Thank you all for hanging in there with us this evening. It was a very good meeting. Meeting is adjourned.